Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Nandana Brajajanara Yamatiravanam Shadi Yamanatiravanam Shadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara C. Mother's Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya There was a question yesterday evening by Jamuna Jivana, and I requested him to answer his own question because this morning I sent to him a PDF, 83-page PDF, that's the work of Purushatraya Swami from sometime before 2010, because sometimes around Y2K, around that time, he spent a few years in Vrindavan, diving into the topic of the four sampradayas. He gave a seminar on that topic at VIAG. He wrote a document, and if you want a copy, you can ask Jamuna Jivana for a copy. So he didn't say yes, but I asked him if he would read the document sufficiently so that he could answer his own question. And his question was, what's the difference of the experience or realization of those who are following the four sampradayas? And rather than giving an offhand answer, Maharaj's research was very comprehensive, and hopefully at some point in time, Jamuna Jivana will say, I'm ready to make a report. And then he can speak to all of us, morning or evening class, because it came up in yesterday evening class. And in this morning's class, I want to touch on similar topic. I mean, not exactly, but similar, because what we have going on here is Lord Brahma, the original preceptor of our sampradaya, right within the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, is giving Lord Chaitanya's teachings of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, or Srimad Bhagavatam's teachings of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, and other truths about Krishna Tattva. So I want to make reference to one verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. You can take note if you want, 1.259, where Rupa Goswami is teaching that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and why. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And why is it that That's understood. It's within Bhagavatam 1:328. But he's explaining that verse in the following way. Siddhantatas tvabedepi Shrisha Krishna Sarupayo Rasenot Krishyate Krishna Rupam Esha Rasa Stitihi. So the first part, though the forms of Vishnu and Krishna are non-different according to the statements of Scripture, and so Siddhanta, they're the same. Siddhanta-wise, they're the same tattva. However, Krishna's form, Krishna Rupam, is shown to be superior because of his rasas. Rasenot Krishyate Krishna Rupam Esha Rasastatihi, which are endowed with the highest type of prema. The very nature of his rasas shows Krishna's form to be superior. The very nature of his rasas shows Krishna's form to be superior. That's Bhanu Swami's translation. Here's another author's translation. Same verse. It's just different approach. Though Shrisha, the Lord of Shri Isha, Shrisha, the name of Narayana or Vishnu is the Lord of Shri. The Lord of Lakshmi, Narayana, the Lord of Paravyoma or Vaikuntha. Though Narayana, the Lord of Shri, and Sri Krishna's person are essentially identical and one. That's Siddhantas te abeda. They're in the same tattva. Yet, the super excellence of Sri Krishna lies in his being the supreme object of the highest prema rasa, because the very nature of rasa shows the most supreme excellence in the form of Sri Krishna, in whom all 12 rasas find their final and absolute expression. That's Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-59. Here's Jiva Goswami's commentary. The meaning in this verse of rasena is, quote, by sweetness composed of the highest levels of prema, rasena. The verb utkrishyate, has a causative sense included in it, and thus it means, quote, is made eminent or is shown as supreme, utkrishyate. This takes place because that is the nature of his rasas, esha rasa stiti. Thus the meaning should be, quote, the very nature of Krishna's rasas shows his form as superior. Now, we're used to hearing the same thing in a different way. And the different way that we're used to hearing it is, Krishna has 64 qualities. For those 64 qualities are within Krishna only, and he uses the word madhuri in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Madhurya. Rupa Madhurya, Guna Madhurya, Venu Madhurya, Lila Madhurya. And Prabhupada has translated those in Nectar Devotion as performer of wonderful activities. That's Lila Madhurya. And Krishna is surrounded by loving devotees. Guna Madhurya, apparently. Krishna's attractive flute, Venu Madhurya. Krishna's exquisite beauty, Rupa Madhurya. That is to say, each of these four, Madhurya, that's a rasa message. And the sweetness of Krishna's flute, the sweetness of Krishna's form, the sweetness of Krishna's activities, the sweetness of his exchanges with his loving devotees, and extending his wonderful loving qualities through his pastimes. These are the super excellence of Krishna. I'm bringing this up because it's not within, specifically, it's not within Brahma's prayers. Brahma is emphasizing the non-difference feature. Siddhantatas abheda. The non-difference between Krishna and all those different features of Krishna. The verse that we discussed yesterday evening, we're continuing this morning, has to do with the guna avatars. So various categories of avatars, and those avatars, they're within Krishna, and there's a non-difference between them and Krishna, but there's also a difference because Krishna is the source of them. Later in his prayers, he's going to go to the sweetness aspect. It's been touched on already, but it's going to be spoken of more explicitly. So that the super excellence of Krishna's position, not only he is the source of everything, but he has this special feature in addition, that the feature of sweetness, Madhurya. I'm mentioning this because this is like a picture of our Achintya Bheda Tattva teaching. And just to add to that, because it connects with a little bit what we spoke of last night, there's a teaching, I'll mention two Sanskrit terms that I've just getting acquainted with. Angsa Angsi Bhava. Angsa Angsi Bhava. It means bhava. It's the nature of the angsa, that the angsa has a connection with angsi. Angsi means the source of all angsas, all expansions or parts or angsas. There's an angsi. Krishna is that angsi, and the parts are angsas. I mean, I'm going into this because it has to do with Krunanidhi's question the other day. And connected with the Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. All the angsas and kalas, Krishna is the source of them. Angsi bhava. The teaching is like this. There's a tree, and the tree has branches. The branch does not exist disconnected from the tree. The tree has branches, but the tree stands even with or without branches. You can cut the branches, and the tree is still the tree. It may not be so. The material examples have their limits, but the tree has its relationship with the branch. So the expansions of Krishna, Mahavishnu, all these things that the Brahma's prayers have said, they're within Krishna, and they exist resting upon Krishna. Now, a little more on the philosophy side, specific to what the Bhagavatam is teaching, or what Lord Chaitanya is teaching, what the Bhagavatam says about Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So, it's in that document that I sent to Jivana Jivana, but I'm used to hearing the doctrine or the vada, the teaching of Ramanujacharya is, we discussed this a little bit last night, Vishishta Advaita. Advaita means non-dual, and Vishishta means attributes. So there's a relationship between the source of everything and everything that it's the source of. And there's Ramanuja's teaching is they are Vishishtas, or attributes within. And the attributes may be manifest, they may be not manifest and withdrawn, but the attributes have a non-dual relationship with the possessor of those attributes, Vishishta Advaita. There's another term that's commonly used, and that is apratak siddhi. We heard this word pratak several times in Brahma's prayers and elsewhere. A common use of this, at least I'm familiar with, pratak, is bhakti that's mixed with the modes. When the mode of ignorance and mode of passion, this word pratak is used. Prabhupada called it the separatist mentality. There's what's Krishna's interest and there's my interest. And my interest is separate. So I just connect my interest with Krishna's interest and I get mixed devotion. Pratak, the separatist. So the pratak means there's no separateness. Apratak siddhi. That's a teaching, another way of describing what Ramanujacharya teaches. There's a relationship between everything, an entity or a person. The example is given by it's in the Bhagavatam, one of the commentators from the Sri Sampradaya speaks of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, has a relationship with Narayan where it's apratak siddhi. She doesn't exist separate from Narayana. And there are those who worship Lakshmi, wishing to acquire benediction from Lakshmi without connecting Lakshmi to Narayan. And that's like Ravan. So she declares she's not accessible to those persons. They may get some shadow of Lakshmi in worship, but not apratak siddhi Lakshmi. So there's a relationship where one thing doesn't exist without the other thing. That's apratak siddhi, which is similar to Vishishta Dvaita. Without going into it, it's very, very elaborate. It's the whole exposition of Vedanta Sutra through Ramanujacharya's Sri Bhashya. And Madhva doesn't accept it. He doesn't accept the Advaita feature. He is Dvaita. This is an entity and exists unto itself. Here's another entity, it exists unto itself, and they're separate entities. There's a source of everything, but the relationship is not a non-dual relationship. It's two things. It's a dual relationship. The example for apratak siddhi goes like this. This is a classic one. Supposing there's a blue lotus, and there's the lotus and there's the blue ness That's an attribute of the lotus. And you can't separate the blue nest from the blue lotus. So when regarding or perceiving or contemplating an object, the blue lotus as the example, you can't separate its attributes from the object. It goes so far as to say, if there's an object that's without attributes, it doesn't exist. The notion that there's an object without attributes doesn't exist. There's a notion of Brahman, an entity that has no attributes, but that's also an attribute of Bhagavan. Anyway, enough philosophy. Madhva rejects this in the Advaita, the inseparability idea, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, or Jiva Goswami is the one that coined the phrase Achintya Ved Abhed Tattva. It's not Lord Chaitanya's phrase. My teaching should be known by Achintya Ved Abhed Tattva. Jiva Goswami coined the phrase because it's consistent with Lord Chaitanya's teachings, which is the teachings of the Bhagavatam. Within Krishna is everything, and then all these things, we heard it with relation to, is the universe real or not real? All those universes that he saw, were they really universes? Or was it just Krishna's mystical Maya, making it look like there's all these universes? And then they all disappeared, so it was just a magic show. They weren't real. Or were they real? And so forth. So understand, there's a difference and non-difference feature between Krishna and everything. That's Lord Chaitanya's teachings. So it's not exactly Ramanuja's and it's not exactly Madhva's. Okay, so that was a mind-bending introduction to this morning's class. And I'm going to read now the translation for 10:14:19, which we started yesterday evening. And Brahma is defeating Mayavad philosophy. He's arguing against it, say that. To persons ignorant of your actual transcendental position, and that's the Mayavadi, or the scholar that thinks formless Brahman, you appear as part of the material world, manifesting yourself by the expansions, by the expansion of your inconceivable energy. Thus, for the creation of the universe, you appear as me, Brahma. For its maintenance, you appear as yourself, Vishnu. And for its annihilation, you appear as Lord Trinetra, Lord Shiva. And here's Jiva Goswami's commentary. You are the root of all guna avatars and lila avatars. This is explained in 2 verses. The subject of the verb bhasi is tvam, which is understood though not stated. You, yourself, or Atma, appear in this world by expanding Maya. For protection, you appear as Vishnu, as if limited to the duty of protection. The name of Vishnu is not mentioned separately, like the names of Brahma and Shiva, because Vishnu is non-different from Krishna. Brahma says himself, going back to Canto 2, Chapter 6, I create under his order, and Shiva destroys under his order. Holding his 3 energies, he protects the universe as the Paramatma. So 2 are empowered and under the order of, and Vishnu isn't under the order of anyone. Sanatana Goswami writes, for non-devotees who do not know your glories, you manifest in another way. For persons ignorant of the truth about you or about bhakti, tvat padavim, you appear as the jiva of the material body. Question: do they not know that there is a big difference between the jiva and the Lord, as explained in the Shrutis and Smritis? Response: you spread your maya. They are bewildered by your maya, since they are not devotees. You appear like me for creating the universe. The Manvantar avatar Vishnu is you, Krishna. Brahma accepts Vishnu and Krishna as non-different. Esha Tvam. This statement means that ignorant people think that Brahma, a jiva, is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They are ignorant concerning the goals of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Paragraph. Though there is a great discrepancy for the jiva, being the creator, maintainer, and destroyer, the sequence of functions and personalities are listed for him because of the jiva's identification with these posts out of pride. Last section. Or, just for the purpose of creation, spreading Maya, you appear as Mahatattva and other elements, and you accept the positions of Brahma, etc. But in truth, you are the real creator, maintainer, and destroyer, as pointed out in the first verse of Bhagavatam, Janmadyasya Yataha. So these are our acharyas in their own way. You know, Prabhupada made things really simple, and our acharyas are, it's not a smoothie. It's a little detailed and detailed and detailed. The essence of that detail is the oneness and difference feature. So the topic here is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And they're guna avatars. We heard yesterday evening, they're real. Mayavadis say they're not. They're real because they come from the real. And one is a jiva, another is Vishnu, and the other is Shiva Tattva. They're of different tattvas, they have different functions. The functions are being enacted for both Brahma and Shiva under the direction of the personality of Godhead. They're not able to do things independently, they're not doing things independently, they're in conjunction with. This is this angsa angsi bhava. They have this function similar to the language that we spoke of using, describing Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. If you remember, just a little refresher. There are different functions. Vishnu is one entity. And there are different, according to functions, different terminologies, but it's one entity. Expanding the universes, entering into the universes, entering into every atom of the universe, those are different functions. But it's a Vishnu function, it's a Vishnu entity doing all those functions. And just like, really simple, there's 11 of us or 12 of us in the room. So there's 11 or 12 of us jivas, and there's one Paramatma, separately situated. It's not 11, 12 Paramatmas, it's one Paramatma, situated all over the place. And that one Paramatma has a function in relation to individual souls And Garbhodakshay Vishnu oversees the activities of all souls, which one can say is done through the agency of Paramatma. And then there's Mahavishnu, who expands the universes. And those three Vishnus are carrying out the function of creation in different features, different dimensions. And then there's, going sequentially, then there's the material nature, or Prakriti, that makes up the universe, and that has its relationship with Krishna. And then there's the controlling deities of the modes of nature that oversee the Prakriti. And it's all resting on one entity, Krishna. So there's this oneness and difference relationship. And one can look at the oneness, and there are verses that look at the oneness. There's verses that look at the difference. But the big picture is, the Bhagavatam's big picture is, there's a oneness and difference between everything and the source of everything. And you can take each of the parts and say, here's the oneness, here's the difference, the simultaneous oneness and difference of everything. So Brahma is highly intelligent, the most intelligent being. So he's not dumbing it down. He's not keeping it. It could read philosophers discussing these topics, and it's a lot more complicated than what we're doing here. Really subtle, but some people like the subtle innuendos of things. That's fine. He's taking a look at the universe, which he's in charge of, this particular universe, building at least, and the presiding personality of the. When the demigods have a problem, they go to Brahma. When Brahma can't sort it out, he goes to Vishnu. So he's the chief, from whom Brahma is getting his power, from whom Lord Shiva is acting on his behalf. And Vishnu is Mahavishnu, or the three Vishnus are carrying out the functions of universal creation. And then there's the universe. And what's the relationship of the universe, the Prakriti, with the source? Oneness and difference. And then the whole thing is functioning. And the whole thing is then later withdrawn by his potency. Specifically by his time potency. He just withdraws the time potency and the whole thing collapses. Or goes into an unmanifest subtle state. Those of us, some of you don't drive around. Some of you do other things. But those of us that drive around a little bit, during the holiday season, Christmas holiday season, there's all kinds of things people have in their front yard. And some of those things they have in the front yard are these pumped up things, or features of a Santa Claus or reindeer, or something. And at night they pump them up. You come by in the morning, it's just a heap because they pull the plug, and that's like the universe when Vishnu pulls time energy. It just collapses. It goes into this dormant or unmanifest, undifferentiated state. And then the time energy starts it up again. It doesn't just like pump up the Santa Claus or the snowman, but it goes through stages of unfolding and unfolding and unfolding, and then the time energy withdraws and withdraws and withdraws. But that's the entire cosmic manifestation. And then it undergoes transformation and so forth. It doesn't move without the time energy and the soul. The soul with his karma, and the soul that's the animating factor along with time energy. It animates matter. And then stuff happens. So that's our it's still a mystery, but it's a mystery that has an answer, as opposed to mysteries that end up in speculation that's really, not an answer. Unlimited speculation since the beginning of time. Just a little side note, and then we'll see if there's some discussion. Bhaktivinoda Thakur received his first copy of Srimad Bhagavatam when he was in his mid-30s, because there was no printing press. So the copy that he had was a handwritten copy from a friend. And then later, during his lifetime, the printing press became, available. So then books were printed abundantly. When he read Srimad Bhagavatam, he writes in his own autobiography that he read it twice, and Chaitanya Charitamrita twice. And within the year, from the year that the time that he received it, he wrote an essay about the Bhagavatam for his, scholarly friends that had really bought into the idea that everything Western is forward and everything Indian is backward, because that was the British propaganda, and they bought into it. So they were familiar with the European literature. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur made a point about the Bhagavatam that any modern literature is nothing but a rewrite of ancient literature. And he gave one example that I recall, that's John Milton's Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained. He said it's just a retelling of the Bible by a modern author. Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained. I've not read the book, but I'm just repeating what Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. So similarly, any great literature, any epic literature, has as its foundation Scripture. So I just happened, in the course, with that note, I just happened to, over this weekend, on the topic of gratitude in the face of challenging times or difficult times, that was the theme. With Mahabharata was one of the topics. Gratitude during challenging times or difficult times. So in researching that topic, Mahabharata topic and gratitude, I came across some drawings of the next Star Wars plan. The next Star Wars plan has taken Mahabharata, is retelling Mahabharata. And only in their retelling, Duryodhana is a good guy. He's misunderstood good guy. And so the drawings show his palace and where he did his meditation and where he had his conversation with Bhishma about not engaging Karna in the battle, and it's just extracting from the Mahabharata story and putting it in modern context with Star Wars, because he had powers that he had to maintain, and he maintained his powers by meditation, and there's big spikes in the ceiling and electricity would come into him and he would maintain his powers that way. Star Wars Part 6 or whatever it is. So people don't understand how to properly understand what's the message, what's culture, what's wisdom, what's knowledge, what's what. It's within the what's what is within the Vedas, but people are dull and they want entertainment. The Vedic texts are very entertaining, but they're elevating, not just entertaining. And the ones that miss the elevation, they may get some entertainment, but it gets degradation instead of elevation of consciousness. So therefore, it's really important for us to get the elevation part straight, because we can then get a picture of how's it working. And then when we hear gobbledygook over there, or entertainment over there, or speculation over there, we can just smile and, depending upon the time, place, circumstance, share what's what. This is what the Amala Pramana says about these things, or what Mahabharata says, or Ramayana says, or what the Vedic wisdom teaches. So people are so disconnected, identifying the body as the self and all the other things that go with it. Sense gratification, fruitive activities, frustration, madness, and so forth. So our lives are dedicated to Aparusheya Shabda Brahman, to connect us with the personality of Godhead in his different aspects, and to understand how things relate to him as our scriptures teach us. It's not easy to understand. There's lots of mystery involved in all of it, but it's consciousness elevating for sure, and connects us. Consciousness elevating means it connects us to the source, just through sound, even if we don't fully understand it. And it will help us in our chanting, even if we don't understand, because that spiritual sound vibration will elevate consciousness. Okay, so in different class this morning, I may just go back to the what the verse in the commentary says, but these little detours kind of come up, and I like to share them. So see if there's some comments or questions in the room or online. Subal.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. This may be a question that is within Jamuna Jivanas Prabhu's research, but I was just thinking that as you were presenting in the class, that is basically impossible to understand the absolute truth without this understanding of oneness and difference. And it's the teaching of the Bhagavatam, so it's there in the Vedas, it's in the essence of the Vedas. So I was wondering how a bona fide sampradaya, like say Madhava Sampradaya, means since that the presentation is incomplete by just highlighting and focusing on the difference, and being so, strong on that. So it seems that it's incomplete, but it's not. It can be that a bona fide sampradaya presents an incomplete understanding of the absolute truth.
I got you. I think I get the essence of your question. It's a bona fide sampradaya, and a bona fide sampradaya connects one with the source of everything. So it's not, they're not yet connected. They're connected. Their understanding of that which is the source of everything is not as complete. But they're connected to the source of everything in a perspective of how everything connects with that source of everything. One of the your comment is similar different, but similar to Jamuna Jivana's question. What's their experience when they follow this sampradaya, that sampradaya? I'm saying in simple language, they connect with the source of everything. But what that experience of that connection with the source of everything, what does it look like? What does it feel like? He hopefully will get some time to, because he's been away, he's going to have to catch up with everything. Get some time to go through that. So those different sampradayas, they have a feeling. Their experience is connection. They're engaged in bhakti. The premise or the foundation for their engaging in bhakti looks a little different, but they're engaged in bhakti to the personality of Godhead. One of the missions of Bhaktisiddhanta was to appreciate the unity of the four sampradayas, while indicating here's some difference, here are the differences. The essence is connecting with the personality of Godhead. If you want to explore that further, ask Jamuna Jivana for a copy of that PDF. And another is Bhaktisiddhanta wrote, and it's available and translated into English. A text, it's not so thick, paperback, on the four sampradayas, giving in details of lots of things, Bhaktisiddhanta style, details of the lineage from the goddess of fortune or for the four Kumaras, etc. And then these are the features, this is how it differs from others. And, then the superlative nature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, circling back to your question, it's not that that their connection is incomplete, they're connected. Their understanding isn't as full as Lord Chaitanya's followers receive that fullness. And specifically the fullness is Braja Prema. And there's a connection, and you can read the literature, and I don't think it's a whole seminar to discuss how Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva leads to Braja Prema. It's supportive of Braja Prema. Parama Karuna had his hand up next.
Follow-up question to Subal Prabhu.
Slowly. Speak
yes,
slowly.
The four sampradaya, their connection is complete, but the understanding to the source of everything is not as complete as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sampradaya. So if the source of understanding about the source of everything is not complete, then they cannot be called upon.
Can I edit your language? The understanding of how all things relate, the relationship with everything, with the source of everything, isn't as complete as with Lord Chaitanya. Emphasis on the non-difference, emphasis on the difference. Sure. Relationship-wise.
Sure, that makes things clear. So my question is that don't they believe in Achintya Bheda Bheda?
Don't they what?
Don't they believe in Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva? They should believe in, otherwise why they consider Krishna the source of everything?
Well, they're faithful to their sampradaya. They've heard, they have faith in their teachers. The teachers have references from scripture that support what the teaching is. It's rooted in the Vedas, and there's a certain teaching, and they've imbibed that teaching, and they have faith in it. It's not wrong. It's a bona fide disciplic succession. Not wrong.
Sure. And I have a full faith in what you are saying, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sampradaya is a complete Sampradaya. But when a layman says that...
Speak slower.
When a common person come in front of you, and he said that you might be saying this point because you are in the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
That's right.
That we are complete.
Yeah.
But how can we say that other three are not complete?
Okay, our business is not whacking people with the Lord Chaitanya stick, saying, our teaching is better than yours. Nah, nah, nah. No, we don't do that. We don't do that. Internally, and then over there, they have their internal, and they have faith, and we don't try to dissuade their faith. They have faith, and that's wonderful. They have faith in Narayan. Go for it. Become a pure devotee of Narayan.
When you're talking about amsa, amshi bhava, and then you explain pritak siddhi and apritak siddhi. Does apritak siddhi same as amsha, amsi
Yes,
bhava?
it's sometimes used interchangeable. Obviously, terminology, there's some distinction, and the distinction is subtle or refined, but they're often used, from my limited experience, they're often used interchangeably.
Makes sense. So when you give the example of apritak siddhi as Narayan with Lakshmi, and when you look at the amshi, amsha bhava, how further we can go, expand that amshi, amsa bhava category? Can we go to Brahma? Can we go to living entities?
You like philosophy, and not everybody likes philosophy like you like philosophy. I'll respond, but I don't want to go further with it, if that's okay. The devotee, the Gaudiya Vaishnav, may use that same term, angsa angsi bhav, and they'll see it a certain way. And the Sri Vaishnava, or follower of Ramanujacharya, may use that same term, and they'll see it in a different way.
Only consider Krishna as a amsi.
Yes.
And we consider ete chamshakala pumshan like Purusha Avtaras, Matsya Kurma Vara as amsha of amshi. We may extend to Brahma,
Yes.
Shiva,
Yes.
but if we don't go too far.
Yes.
And what they consider amshi is Krishna, and what is their amsha?
This is not a class. I'll answer, but I don't want to go further. They describe the relationship as there's a literally, absolutely non-different relationship between the one and the other, the angsa and angsi. So for them, the angsi is Narayan, and then the angsas are the avatars and expansions and so forth. There's angsas of the angsi, and they're an absolute non-difference between the two. And we say difference, non-difference simultaneously. We may use the same phrase, they perceive it or understand it and feel it differently. Okay?
So, Shakti.
This was your written question.
Yes.
Can I answer your written question separately? Because it's a little technical. I saw it. I didn't get to it yet. Whew. Anybody else would like to? Back there?
I was thinking about the disconnected part you were talking like.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to either speak louder or hold it closer, or both.
So, as you were saying, everything modern literature we see is coming from ancient literature in one way or the other.
Yes.
So, and then people are disconnected in the sense they feel the modern literature is the thing.
They feel the what changes?
The modern literature.
The model?
the modern literature.
Modern literature. Thank you. Modern literature changes things. Okay, got it.
And they are so much indulged in the modern literature that having them to turn to a ancient literature and say this is where everything is coming from
Yeah.
is not always easy.
No.
And then
There's many reasons why. The value system is different. Yes, that's a big one. You know, culture, how you say and do and feel. So there's a big disconnect. It's hard to relate to it. Then?
So sometimes I feel they live in a different world from the world that I live in. And then if I want to bring them to my world, kind of, then some people feel more disconnected than others.
Yes.
So is it that what does one do when, so I feel there are different buckets of people when I interact with them. Some people are like way far away, and then some are at least oriented and trying to move towards something. So
Correct.
is it like more in the sense people who feel disconnected, is it okay not to like engage too much time with them because
Yeah.
they're just not.
That's natural. You plant seeds where the ground is fertile.
Okay. So will these people who are like completely disconnected, will they ever turn towards?
Yeah. So what do we do for those people? That's maybe what your question
Yeah.
is. Three things, minimal. Good character, ideal character, display ideal character, because that's attractive. That attracts the hearts of people who are disconnected. Here's a genuine person. On this topic, discuss a little bit with Sri Radhika, because that's her meditation these days. And not just for preaching, just for, being is being a person of character. And that's not easy, but that's a Vaishnav. So if you're a person of character, it'll help people that they're not used to somebody having character. They're used to disconnected people. It's very attractive. They may feel intimidated by it, but nonetheless, it's very attractive. Second, of course, is prasadam, and the third is just spiritual sound vibration, the holy name and spiritual sound vibration. Prabhupada established the Hare Krishna movement based upon his faith in that. The holy name and spiritual sound vibration. Of course, purity helped a lot, but his faith brought about transformation in the hearts of people that were otherwise very disconnected. In different ways, frustrated, angry, wanton sense gratifiers, lost, etc.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
those three things. We're going to go online now.
I apologize. This might be a little rough. It's from Manoj Kumar. As same Paramatma is in all body, but in each body there are many soul, like bacteria.
Yeah.
Does it mean many souls?
Does it mean what?
Does it mean many soul?
Yeah, there's many souls, and each of those souls has Paramatma accompanying them, the bacteria included. Super soul is everywhere. Or say it negative. Is there some place where super soul isn't? Next.
Sri Radhika. Is there something special about the function of maintenance or the expertise it requires that Lord Krishna incarnates himself, whereas for creation and destruction, he produces expansions in the form of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva?
Well, there's different ways of answering that. But Lord Vishnu is supportive of the mode of goodness, especially. And anybody that's been around for a while knows it's one thing, it's much easier to create something or destroy something than to maintain something. So, he does the heavy lifting. He's supporting those that are doing the creating, destroying, and he's supporting the maintenance.
Uttama Bhakta Das. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, being in charge of motive passion and ignorance, are sometimes touched by those modes. By those modes.
Yes.
Is Lord Vishnu always above the mode of goodness, or he ever gets touched by it?
A. He's not touched by it.
Okay, another question from Sri Radhika. In the midst of the sweetness of Canto 10 pastimes, hearing these very long, detailed, and philosophical prayers of Lord Brahma is making me feel impatient to get back to just hearing about Krishna's simple, sweet katha. Is this another manifestation of the separatist mentality? As purity of heart is progressively attained, will such a preference be washed away so that I can appreciate all aspects of the Bhagavatam? Or does my psychophysical nature predispose me for the duration of this lifetime towards such preferences?
Well, that's up to you. But the Bhagavatam has its various parts for a reason, and Vyasadeva certainly knows the reason, and to help us stay connected to He who is the source of everything. If we just go to the sweetness, we may lose that sense of we're connecting ourselves to the source of everything. And so both parts are there, even in the midst of the 10th canto, what to speak of before and after.
Uttama Bhakta. From today's class, looks like Achintya Bheda Abheda is so vast that it can not only accommodate and engage Sri and Madhva lines, but has the philosophical capacity to engage Adi Shankaracharya line. Is that correct?
Well, the capacity is there, but people could say no or yes. I heard Radhika Raman say in one class, I heard a recording of his speaking, that Jiva Goswami didn't write 7 Sandarbhas, that is, he didn't present Brahman Sandarbha with the understanding that Shankaracharya's already done that, so I don't have to duplicate. What needs to be said, what can be said about Brahman, he's already said, so I don't have to go redo it. So that is to say that the concept of Brahman is included in the Bhagavatam. And the Absolute Truth has these 3 features, and that's illuminated within the Bhagavatam. Now, its relation to Paramatma and Bhagavan is also illuminated. So I think that answers his question. Next.
Okay, this looks like the last. From Amol.
Yeah.
On the topic of prayers, I read a statement in 7th Canto, Chapter 1, Text 23, purport, that has puzzled me quite a bit. Quote, since the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not material, but Satchit Ananda Vigraha, he's unaffected by insults or greetings, blasphemy or prayers. Being always unaffected and complete, he does not feel extra pleasure when offered nice prayers by the devotees. Although the devotee benefits by offering prayers to the Lord. Please explain this part about Krishna not feeling extra pleasure when offered prayers.
There's different ways of understanding. One is the pleasure that Krishna, the pleasure that someone may get by being flattered is not within Krishna. What Krishna accepts and is pleased with is the love with which something is offered, whether it's prayers or anything else. Or let's say the arrows of Grandfather Bhishma. That's not prayers, but it's a loving exchange that he derives pleasure. So he's attracted by the loving sentiment with which something is done, not specifically the something. That's one way to understand. It's samaham sarvabhuteshu name dveshos na priyaha. So Krishna is neutral. And at the same time, he holds very dear to him those who are his devotees. And the devotees offer prayers. But it's not the prayers per se, it's the devotion that they have for Krishna. That's what he holds dear. Anything? Would you like to contribute to this discussion this morning? No? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.